In this video, we're talking about which one of the only 3 business models for coaches you should be following. In this class, we are talking about these 3 business models. I am going to make a case that there are only 3 business models. There are all kinds of confusing tactics and templates out there, but there are only 3 main business models. And if you don't understand what model you even want to create, then you're going to be in a really difficult situation because you won't know what to do. One of the things that we said in the class yesterday is that a lot of people are doing the right things. It's just the wrong time. It's just misaligned, or something is right for somebody else. So there might be something that's right in one of these business models and sounds phenomenal and actually does work. And it's the absolute worst thing you could do. So that's where it gets really difficult for us to be able to discern what's right and what's right for me. In the coaching industry, there's no consensus over what's right and wrong because there's no regulation in the industry. So there's all this discussion and competition around what's right. And when people are saying, this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do, these are my results, these are my students' results, they all sound good. One of the things that you've got to understand is who you are and what you want and what type of business you even want to create and what kind of lifestyle you want and what sort of pressures do you want or not want. You have to understand what your puzzle piece is in order to see which puzzle pieces fit yours. Otherwise, everything is going to sound really good, and they all are right. They're just mostly misaligned for you. So when it comes to these business models, I want you to think about, how do you want to live your life? You know, this is one of the things that is missed so often in personal development in general, definitely in the coaching industry. How do you want to live your life? We chase all of these measurements of success and we follow people, or we're taught that we need to want to be a 6-figure coach. But I can promise you right now that many of you, maybe most of you, are following recipes that, again, are right. They're just not right for you. And even if the recipe worked to the utmost potential of the recipe, you would have something that doesn't support the life you want to live. So then where's the win in that? We get so caught up in the financial success, the vanity success with how many followers you have and, you know, what's the size of your group and all this kind of stuff. And what's sacrificed in that chasing a lot of times is the human life under there. You know, does it even have the potential to support your lifestyle? And I think that's really what business is it's something that you can create to give you the freedom to live the life that you want to live. So I think business success needs to be measured, at least in part, if not mostly, by whether it gives you the ability to live the life you want to live. Because you can make millions of dollars and not live the life you want to live. And in my mind, that business is a failure. So what does success even mean to you? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? And when you ask yourself some of these questions, those are the 3 main ones that I invite you to ask. And please share your answers. Don't do it right now because I want you to pay attention to this, unless you're watching the replay and you're hitting pause and you answer these questions. But share your answers. How do you want to live your life? What does success mean to you? And what impact do you want to make? If you don't have the answers to those 3 questions, here's what I'll tell you. None of this means shit. None of it means anything. Because you don't know how you want to live your life. So how can I or anybody else tell you how to create something that will support the lifestyle that you don't know you want? And this is not a series of questions. You know, these kind of introspective questions are not questions that you're just going to answer once and then you'll be done with. You also have to understand that as you answer that question, as you live life and as things change and as you evolve, some of that might shift a little bit. What you want in your lifestyle might change a little bit. My experience is, for me personally, and almost everybody that I know that has been in not just the personal development world and not just the coaching world, but success in any endeavor, the more we live our lives, the less things that used to be important are important. The things that we think are important early on in our journeys, and I'm not saying anything bad, and sometimes they are legitimately important, but the more that we experience the things that we believe to be important and we start to evolve, a lot of those things become less important. And then it allows us the ability to hone in on what really truly is important. So I want you to understand that the answer to these questions are potentially temporary for you. But when they shift, they'll get better, meaning they'll be even more and more and more aligned for you. So in that regard, temporary is good. One of the things, I'll just put this, I'm thinking it right now, so I'm just going to say it, but I'm not going to dive into it. We'll do at least one class on this later. But one of the biggest challenges that people have is they think that their decisions early on need to be their decisions forever. Like who you choose to be your seeker, who's your ideal client, that needs to be your forever seeker. No, it doesn't. It just needs to be your right now seeker to get you in motion so that your forever seeker reveals themselves to you. But they will not show up for you if you're just sitting at the bus stop waiting for them to come along. So you've got to ask yourself some introspective questions first so that this stuff is relevant. And what most people are doing is diminishing one of these business models that I think is the one that you should focus mostly on, and following the recipe for the other two. That's been my experience in 15 years, 17 years in this industry, 13, 15 years talking to coaches and really studying why coaches struggle and why coaches succeed. So I'm going to go top down here. This is where it starts. This is like business model number 1, number 2, number 3, and this does have a flow for the most part. This top one here is what I call an enterprise. I'll tell you what these are, and then I'll explain a little bit more about each of them. The second one is what I call a company. And the third one here is what I call a business. Now, don't get too caught up in the exact words and the definitions. These are my labels, and I'll explain why I say these. The enterprise is the thing that is in the big bright lights. Everybody, I think, fantasizes about having an enterprise, or at least having the impact of an enterprise. Almost nobody should even think about this, especially early on in your career. You should not even be considering enterprise, at least next steps. It's okay to have this as a long term, but you should not be following short-term business plans to get you to an enterprise until you have a successful company. Now, I'm using that word success inside the framework of the 4S cycle that was in class number 1: survival, stability, success, and significance. Until you get to that third level inside this second model, you shouldn't even consider taking steps toward enterprise, because your business will not be able to handle it. This is where, to give you some ideas, John Maxwell, Jack Canfield, Lisa Nichols, Tony Robbins, these are enterprises. And you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You're making a huge mistake if you're just trying to jump to their levels because you like what they do, without realizing that every single one of those people that I just mentioned has, I think, at minimum 30 years in this industry. 30 years. So they didn't become an overnight enterprise. They did a lot of work when nobody knew about them. And then they become the enterprise. And the problem that a lot of us fall into is that we see what we ultimately want, and then we just try to jump there. We try to go too fast. We try to skip steps because that's what we ultimately want. We have this hacking mentality. We have a microwave mentality. Whatever we want it yesterday. And we want to skip steps, and we want to get there. And we don't want to have to do the work. And so since we have that natural biological desire to take shortcuts and to preserve energy, we are massively susceptible to anybody that will tell us the impossible is possible. That's why a lot of us are following game plans that are right for somebody, but just not right for us. So this is exponential growth. This is exponential profits. This is managing a really big team. This is mainstream media, big talk shows, right? This is the stuff that is amazing. I personally want to have the impact of an enterprise. I definitely don't want to have the business model of an enterprise that a lot of them have, but I want to have an impact of an enterprise, but I'm still multiple steps away from that. And I've been doing this for 15 years, 17 years. I always say 15 for whatever reason. So that's the enterprise. And I'll tell you, most of you shouldn't be looking here. If you are successful at this level, then yeah, let's talk offline or get somebody that can help you go to that level. The second, and remember, this is top up. Bottom up rather. So the second one, I'm going down now, is the company. And this is a lot more reachable for a lot more people. This is where you've got more automation. Maybe you've got a social media team because you have leverage at this level. You have leverage at this level, meaning you've built a company, you've built an organization with people and systems that can reach more people than yourself. So at this level, we're talking about a lot of evolved business concepts. We're talking about evolved branding, meaning the early branding has evolved to figure out, or you've figured out as it's evolved, what really lands for people. What's the product that is the thing that people really, truly want from you. You've learned what you really enjoy delivering and teaching. You've got advertising. You've got teams. You probably have managers of teams, right? So this whole thing is a scaled and scalable organization. It's scaled beyond you and it's set up to scale further. There are some really sexy results that happen here. This is where people can get, you hear these stories a lot, $15,000 in a weekend, or $100,000 in a weekend, or multiple seven figures over the course of a year, or seven-figure launches. Those are not possible without companies and a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. But because this is so sexy, and we want microwavable sexy, we get caught in the trap here even more than here. We get caught in the trap of trying to build a company when we don't have a business. You shouldn't even look at building a company until you have a stable, at least successful would be preferable, business. The only people that I think should jump to company is people that already have this business acumen, and you've maybe got funding and you've got a team of people, and you're going to basically like create a startup company. And if you're going to do that, you're not going to do it in the transformational coaching world. You're not going to do it with a transformational product, but you might do it with an informational product. You might sell marketing or something like that. But that's pretty rare in this industry. And that's, I would guess, nobody who pays attention to our channels and can stomach anything that I say. You are not that person. So I want to spend the majority of the rest of the time here on this phase, on this business model rather. If you're going to grow, then this becomes a phase. But here's the thing. I think almost everybody should start here, besides the people I just mentioned, but almost everybody should start here, and almost everybody should stay here. And the reason I say that is this business model actually has more potential to fulfill your personal desires, to fulfill the lifestyle that you want, to make a little bit of extra money, which will mean a lot for most people. This one up here has expenses and pressure and time and deadlines and payroll. This one up here is more pressurized than most people know about, because most people that are teaching how to get here, they don't talk about the pressures. They don't talk about the bad stuff. That's not what we want to hear. We just want to hear the sexy stuff, right? But the ingredients that are required to have a company that's successful are ingredients that most people just don't want or need in their life, especially if you are clear on what happiness means to you and you don't have this business degree and you're out to just make a bunch of money and go public, right? Most of us are not that. We just want to help people doing the things that we were helped with. We just want to change lives, and we can make money doing that. Yes. So the majority of people should start and actually stay here. Now, this is really you're trading time for money, which there's nothing wrong with. One of the things that the whole industry has done in selling all the sexiness is diminished and actually shamed the idea of having a job in general or trading time for money. It's one of the reasons, or one of the ways rather, that a lot of people sell their stuff. Like, you got to stop trading your time for money. You got to get leverage. You got to become a company. But you know what? If you haven't traded time for money, you can't get leverage. You've got to create success in a transactional way in order to scale beyond those transactions. But if you don't know what it's like to trade time for money, and you don't know what people will actually purchase, then scaling zero is zero. Scaling is a multiplier. Anything times zero is zero. If you have no success here, scaling zero is not going to give you success. It's going to give you more stress, and it's going to give you more pressure on top of the lack of success. So I want to make this less emotional for some of you, because the right business model and then the 4S cycle that I taught in class number 1, those are not emotional templates. Those don't get fueled by motivation or inspiration. These are just the guts of business. And because most of us that get into the coaching world don't understand it, we don't build it right. And we just try to build our business with, a wing and a prayer and a goal poster, right? And that's great to support, but that won't build a business. So at this phase, you should be focusing on 6 C's. 6 C's at this phase. You're focused on certainty. I don't have them all memorized. You're focused on content, conversions, conversations, clients, and the most important one, conversations, clients, and consistency. Most people are not consistent because they have expectations based on misunderstandings, based on things that are literally impossible, and the lack of consistency rules this out. When you're at this phase, especially when you're at the survival and the stability phase, more so the survival phase, the majority of the actions you take are mostly designed for you to grow. They're actually not designed for your business to grow. The majority of the actions you take are valuable because they'll grow you, not the business. And when the business grows, if you haven't grown to support it, the business will fall. Because you and your internal capacity is holding the business. And so many people are trying to follow these templates and these business plans, and they're not even entrepreneurs in their mind, but they're building an entrepreneurial framework that their internal capacity cannot keep up. So I want you to understand there's a lot of work here that doesn't get immediate transaction. You're going for that. You're getting clients, so that's part of your focus. You're doing that by building your certainty. You got to have certainty in your skill set and who you are and your messaging and all that. You're creating content, but you're not creating content for people to purchase your programs or for people to pay you as a coach. You're mostly creating content just to get good at creating content. You got to grow in this area before people start to be attracted to it usually. Conversions. How do you take somebody who sees your stuff and becomes a fan, and then they become a follower, and then they become an engager, and then they become somebody that's on your email list, and then they eventually become a client? You're focusing on those conversions. You do it primarily with conversations, online conversations, one-on-one conversations. That's the best way to get clients. And you got to do all of this consistently, you guys. If you focus on these 6 C's, there will be shifts that you take. There will be detours. But if you focus on these 6 C's, you can create a successful business where you're making a few $100s every month, which could then turn into a few $1,000s every month, which could then turn into $8,000, maybe $10,000. And then you can take a look at, once this becomes consistent, by the way, income needs to be consistent before you start scaling up. Just because you have one $10,000 month doesn't mean you have a $10,000 a month business. It means you had one $10,000 month. Consistency is what allows you to continue to evolve. Let me know what landed for you. All of these have internal individual variables. So this is a lot of high level understanding, but who you are might change my advice for what content you create, let's say, who your seeker is. What does consistency mean to you? Might not be the same as what it means to somebody else, because what you need to focus on might not be the same. So there's a lot of individual variables. I can't give you any exact game plan without knowing who you are exactly. Now, if you like this video, check out that video right there, where I break down the 3 steps for you to follow for sustainable financial success as a coach. What you're worth is an emotional conversation for most people. They'll tell you what you're worth because they'll pay